Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the next session of Jamiti Dialogue Series. This is our third series, which we are doing today, which is called Tech in Placemaking. And I'm happy to share that it's just by coincidence that the organizing team of Jamiti and Placemaking India are all women, and also panel today are going to be women speakers and moderator. So happy to introduce you to our panel today. So we have Dr. Joe Morrison here with us. Uh, Dr. Joe Morrison is Director of Innovation and Research at Calvium, a leading award-winning digital agency based in UK. She has a number of years of experience in research, experience design, software engineering, and mobile innovation. Dr. Joe also holds the post of co-director of the Association of Collaborative Design and is a fellow of the UK's Institute of Place Management. Joe also operates at the intersection of research, design, and enterprise with focus on digital innovation and multidisciplinary collaborations. Improving the social, cultural, economic, and environmental propensity of towns and cities through digital innovation is a core aim of her life. So welcome, Dr. Joe. Next, we have Suganda Gupta, who's joining us as a speaker today. Suganda is an urbanist and placemaker based in Amsterdam, and she's been doing work in placemaking since the last 4 years. And she's done her architect from degree in architect from Aligarh Muslim University, and her post graduation from Delft University of Technology in Urbanism. Suganda has special interests associated with new technology and has been doing a lot of work in virtual reality in placemaking. And she would be talking to us today about that. And she has been organizing various placemaking training programs at her company BAFAS Plus, and she has been doing a lot of work and research in virtual reality. So looking forward to hearing her speak on that. And the moderator for today is Sonali Vyas. She is the senior program manager at SafetyPin, a technology platform based out of Gurgaon, India. And she uses a set of apps to collect data on safety in cities. At the core of SafetyPin is the safety audit, which they use, which is linked to safety and inclusivity. And that speaks for women's safety in particular. As a trained architect, urban planner, Sonali is involved in data analysis, representation, and formulation of recommendations for creating safe public spaces. And she has also co-authorized the policy brief on women and transport in Indian cities. So welcome, Sonali. So I would like to first invite Sonali Vyas to join us today. Welcome, Sonali.
Thank you, Dimple. Thank you, Dimple, and Jamiti team and Placemaking India team for inviting me here. I'm very excited to be part of today's session on tech in placemaking. So I would like to start with a saying that when a space becomes more than some of its parts, it becomes a place. And that's where placemaking comes in. Placemaking is the act of creating great places by making a public space a living place. The objective is to design, build, and maintain lively neighborhoods and inviting public space that people from all walks of life can access and enjoy it. And the design that takes technology into consideration is paramount for our future of our cities. And so there is a need to start thinking about how the technologies can fit into these public spaces. The technologies have already become part of our everyday life, be it as a necessity or as a convenience. And with the invasion of internet and smartphones, people are being connected, but only socially, not physically. They have forgotten the art of the joy of meeting in public spaces. But after these last couple of months in lockdown, I'm sure most of us would like to go out, hang out with our friends in parks, markets, heritage sites, etc. And with this COVID-19, I think we have been forced to also rethink about how we are moving around our cities, how we are living how we are using our public spaces. So this is a great opportunity for us to figure out how we can use the technology to build better, lively, and accessible public spaces. So our session today is about two different technologies that's being used to create lively spaces, and we have two wonderful speakers from United Kingdom and Amsterdam joining us. Before I invite our speakers to present their experiences, their work, I would like to inform all our participants that the comment section is open for their comments and questions, and we would be taking them after in the Q&A session. With this, I would like to invite Dr. Morrison to share her work on digital placemaking. Over to you, Dr. Morrison.
Thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Morrison. Yeah.
Thank you, Sonali, and thank you, Dimple. Here we go. Here's the moment of truth. Share. There we go. Can everybody see the presentation? I'm hoping that's a yes. So hello, everyone, and thank you very much to the Jamiti team for inviting me to speak with you today about the opportunities that digital placemaking affords us. I've called my talk Optimism, as that's what I was feeling when I was considering what to say at this event. I was feeling optimistic, and this is the lane where I was walking at the time. But I wasn't feeling optimistic solely because of the uncharacteristically blue skies for March in the UK. I was also thinking about the real potential for digital placemaking to help us collectively to shape our urban spaces into more socially integrated and sustainable places. When we think of the many challenges that our towns and cities share, be they societal, economic, environmental, then it's safe to say that the creative and responsible use of location-specific technologies can help us to make our neighborhoods more livable. So I'm going to start by giving you a summary of Calvium, the agency where I work, and where the 3 case studies that I'll discuss were developed. And I'll also present an overview of digital placemaking so that we've got a shared reference between us. So Calvium is a digital agency in the UK, and we have a history and a passion for creating digital services and experiences that help to foster deeper connections between people and places. And to do that, we work at the intersection of people, place, technology, and data. And we do so collaboratively, as digital placemaking is inherently a multifaceted and relational practice. For me, digital placemaking is related to the placemaking concept, which, as Sonali was saying, is broadly understood as a collaborative process whereby people from a range of communities inform and influence the evolving experience of public space. And by adding digital to placemaking, we can expand and reframe the ways that we think about public space and spatial practices, people's behaviors in space. And already there's an array of practitioners who have adopted location-specific digital technology and media to create new ways for people to engage with places. For instance, and we've got a few here, there's participatory planning projects to help citizens reshape their neighborhoods using Minecraft software as a creative design tool. Folks are playing augmented reality street games such as Pokemon Go, and citizens are reporting local issues, including potholes in roads and broken street lights, such as in Fix My Street. And of course, we have safe city apps where girls and women can show where they feel safe and unsafe in the city, and more, much more. So whilst diverse in nature, a common characteristic across these projects is the ability of urban tech to foster deeper or different relationships between people and the places they inhabit. So for the purposes of today's session, let's use this definition of digital placemaking: the augmentation of physical places with location-specific digital services, products or experiences to create more meaningful destinations for all. And by adopting a creative and responsible approach to urban technologies, they have positive impacts on society. It's safe to say that digital placemaking is critical for advancing sustainable urbanization and improving the quality of life for all. And that it can be an essential part of achieving the place strategies of our towns, cities, and regions. And so with place strategies in mind, here you can see some familiar strategic categories. Together, they seek to revitalize the built environment, support people to live healthier lifestyles, have more efficient place management systems, and so forth. And indeed, this set was drawn from Thamesmead, which is a huge regeneration project led by the Peabody Trust in England. And underpinning such types of categories is often the desire for co-design with communities, the participation of more diverse voices, and sustainable and regenerative urbanism for livable cities. So, having framed digital placemaking for us and its potential to help us achieve our place strategies, let's turn to the case studies. I've selected 3 that illustrate the third, fourth, and fifth categories listed here, which are growth and regeneration, culture, and community. I'll start by introducing Navsta, which is an example of co-creating a wayfinding app with the audience who are the primary end users, in this case, people with hidden disabilities. Navsta illustrates inclusive research and co-design as a digital placemaking practice and shows how the creative and thoughtful application of digital technologies can make public spaces more accessible for all. So these words from 3 statements are from 3 statements that were made in the early stage of the Navsta research when our participants described how they felt when traveling through train stations. Hate, brave, frightened. Nobody should use these words about their experience of being in a public space. And in this slide, the UN talks about the negative effects of disability-based discrimination. And the World Health Organization states that environmental, physical, social, and attitudinal environments, physical, social, and attitudinal, can either disable people with impairments or foster their participation and inclusion. And that's what Navsta seeks to do, to help people to have greater access to the social, cultural, and economic opportunities of urban living, through the ability simply to travel around the cities. So at the moment, as you can see in this diagram, people in London are able to plan their journey and travel using digital tools, but not for their whole journey. So Citymapper and Google Maps are very popular. But railway stations are not covered. And when there, people need to have reliable indoor wayfinding tools. So this means that people with hidden disabilities, many people, simply won't travel. So they don't go to museums, they don't access jobs, and so forth. And what Navsta does is to plug this gap, as you'll see with the blue blocks, and provide the necessary tools to help people plan their journey through a station, undertake their journey, and manage uncertainty during a journey. And here we've got a few screen grabs from the Navsta app interface. And as you can see, it provides information about Canada Water Station, which is part of London Underground, and does so using text, audio, and imagery, allowing a user to access the same type of information in a mode that suits their individual needs at a particular time was identified as being essential by the participants in the Navsta research. And as such, we did just that. We designed that in. If you look at the 4th screen, the help button is important. The participants said that the color of the help button and its position needed to be not red, not a bright, vibrant color, because that affected their mood negatively and made them feel more anxious. So for me, that was counterintuitive, but that's why we designed a pale yellow, because the users told us that that was the thing to do. And so to sum up Navsta, through all our activities, we learned that it's vital to build a flexible, adaptable, and personalizable mobile wayfinding tool that responds to the immediate needs of the customer. Because fundamentally, if we want all people to be able to participate in the full richness and texture of society, then we have to design for people to be able to do just that. And that means designing inclusively. My second case study addresses the culture aspect in our set of place strategy categories, and it explores cultural encounters between people and public places. So here I'm using Calvium's new Place Experience platform, and this is a visitor experience digital product and visitor management service. And already, although it was only launched in 2020, so just a few months ago, the platform has been used by a host of European cities. But I'm going to focus briefly on Salisbury, which is a medieval town in the rural countryside of Wiltshire in England. So to aid Salisbury's economic recovery after the Novichok incident, which is there was a deadly nerve agent attack in its centre, Salisbury received funding to support businesses and to boost tourism, because basically the footfall had collapsed and there was an incredibly negative impact on the city's economy. So the city developed a long-term recovery strategy which placed the high street, culture and growth at its core. And so to help achieve their strategic aims and using the Place Experience platform, Calvium worked with Salisbury to create the Salisbury Trails Visitor app, which guides visitors around Salisbury's historic streets to discover the city's hidden histories. Now, the stories themselves are produced by the place management team in Salisbury in collaboration with the local community. And these stories can change over time. So when the strategic needs of Salisbury grows, the council in turn will be able to respond accordingly with the system. And at the same time as providing a visitor experience, it also supports, the platform also supports visitor and place management. For instance, overcrowding in hotspots, signified by this red route, in many towns and cities, as you know, causes resentment amongst communities, damage to the environment, to infrastructure, and a reduced visitor and resident satisfaction overall. Now, as seen in Salisbury, you can create new routes for visitors to move around and interact with the destination, taking them away from the hotspots. So while visitors can encounter the heritage, the culture and communities of less trodden areas, importantly, they are supporting the economies of these places and reducing the negative impacts I mentioned earlier. So through bespoke storytelling, crafted wayfinding, and up-to-date information, the experiences of a destination's visitors, residents, and businesses can be radically improved. And that's simply through adopting a digital placemaking approach. So in my last few minutes, I'm going to feature Ideascape, a favorite project of mine, and it illustrates the third place strategy category, community. So in order to identify how digital technologies can positively impact upon the success and sustainability of a large regeneration site in Cardiff, which is the capital city of Wales, we were commissioned by the developers to undertake a 6-month research project to identify ways in which digital placemaking can contribute to the social, cultural, and economic prosperity of the area, thereby enhancing the quality of life of its communities for years to come. And to do this, we worked with a range of people from the stakeholder communities, including artists, local council members, architects, residents, visitors, workers, and so forth. And collaboration and community engagement was central to the research. And indeed, you can download the report that I wrote from Calvium's website. So the aims of the project were to explore the types of physical and digital futures and smart city futures that the communities wanted and didn't want, and to do so with them through identifying and co-designing potential scenarios and developing 10 lo-fi location-specific services and experiences for people to test and feedback on at a public event, a public showcase, of which this picture is from that showcase. And so there were so many rich findings from the research, and I'm just going to highlight a few now. So there was a real desire for digital placemaking to be an open and inclusive practice that is sensitive to the existing environment and accountable to the public. Hurrah! Accountable to the public. Communities also wanted to actively and meaningfully participate in the future experience of the area. So there was a real willingness to be engaged. We also found through testing these different lo-fi projects that digital placemaking offers people deeper connections to a place by providing alternative views of the area that challenge some people's existing perceptions. And also there is a really strong desire to maintain a connection to the natural world and investigate ways within which technologies can help us to do that. And also through the varying kind of historical projects that we created, it illustrated the value of enabling a diverse and evolving range of historical accounts of the area to be present, again, through the application of digital placemaking. So, to conclude, we've looked at the practice of digital placemaking, and we've explored a range of ways in which digital technologies are being used to support and enhance our experience of places and our relationships with them, in particular through the stories of Navsta for railway stations, through the Place Experience platform and Ideascape. Hopefully, I have left you feeling optimistic. But before I go, having shared this set of very different projects and introduced you to a digital placemaking approach, I now challenge you to commit to embarking on your own optimistic digital placemaking journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Morrison, for such an optimistic presentation. I hope we can all be optimistic for our future.
Yeah.
And yes, and while looking at your presentation, I saw a lot of synergies in the app that I work for, SafetyPin, and we also look for crowdsourced data in terms of safety, like how do they feel, how do they experience our cities. So we are always look out for the feedback on people, like how do they enjoy the app. So I would like to ask you, from all the digital technology that was shared as a part of Ideascape, which one was most popular with the participants and why?
Oh, there was actually two, so I'll quickly say. So the last one that you saw, which was some binoculars, they were sightseeing binoculars. It looked very odd, but what you were able to do there was they were augmented reality. So there was a physical object that you could hop onto and look around, and it had a 360-degree pivot. And it also had a handle, which was actually a screwdriver because it went slightly wrong. As I did say, they were lo-fi. But that handle could move back and forward over time. And I think it was 100 years back and 30 years forward. And it overlaid over the environment as you looked around. You could see the history of the environment. So you could see it was a large shipping port, so you could see ships there. You could see trains and with coal mine and shipping coal. And then you could also look forward to seeing what the plans were of the area. So you could see some flats along the waterfront and so forth. And you could control that through this lever, which was a screwdriver, moving forward and back. And that was fantastic because everybody knew automatically how to interact with that object. And it wasn't anything that was in the hand. It was, you weren't looking in, at a smartphone or anything like that. It was a very natural object, and had all the affordances that enabled you to behave with it as you would, and that element of surprise. And oh goodness, boys who were 8 years old just absolutely loved it, and zoomed around, and then other people who were residents were for the first time being able to see what the plans were, and some were quite shocked, I have to say. But seeing what the plans were for the area. So that was one. And then I'll quickly say the second one, which I have to say surprised me, and that's always really important when you're working in this space, to have your challenges, to have your assumptions challenged. And that I thought, oh, for goodness sake, this is the most basic idea. Should we even be showing this? But anyway, it was a public space booker. So it's a way for communities to just book areas of public space. And what happened in conversation is, people wanted it straight away, but also what they were doing was investing themselves and their lives already in that place. For instance, one chap said that he leads a choir and he would love to be singing outdoors in that space with his choir. Another person worked at the BBC, which was is an anchor tenant on the site, and so she goes past every morning. No one ever uses the space, but she'd love to be being able to book morning Tai Chi sessions, and so forth. So there were two that really captured the imagination in very different ways.
I think they will be my favorites also, because every time I go to a different city, a new city, I would love to know about the history, about the cultural experiences, and I really love your NAFTA app also, and the cultural experience. Hope I can experience that soon.
Thank you, Sonali.
Now moving on to our next speaker, Suganda Gupta, who will now be also talking about the next important resource in placemaking, which are people and communities. How are we going to collaborate with them? Over to you, Suganda.
Thanks a lot, Sonali, and thanks a lot, Joe, for setting up the perfect platform for me to introduce VR. I'm just going to share my screen and hi. Yes, so this is about virtual reality in placemaking and a better city at eye level. So what I'm going to do is, Joe has already talked about digital placemaking and the applications that you can use. What I'm going to talk about is virtual reality and how you can use it as a tool in two of the projects. One is Salisbury and the other is Rijkersbos in Amsterdam. So I'm shortly going to introduce our office, that's BFAS Plus, where I work, and we work with architectural projects, urbanism projects, and placemaking. And what we really visualize and believe in is about it's more of a human-centered approach. So it's about talking to the stakeholders on how you would like to design, and really getting in the users in the approach of designing. The firstly, I would just like to set up a moment of explaining what placemaking is all about. And as Sonali said in the introduction, it is about turning a public space from a place you just want to go through as soon as possible to one you never want to leave. And how do we change a place to livable, and how we say it here is actually lovable? How do you love a place in a city? So I'm going to tell you about the participation process in the Netherlands, because like it's also a law here that the participation is an obligation. And under the Environmental Act, it's like the municipalities also keep a budget specifically for participation, and it's about informing, consulting, advising, and then the co-production along with the residents, developers, and the other stakeholders. And then I'm going to talk about the placemaking process. So there are some initiators. They can be anyone. For example, here it's Municipality of Amsterdam. Then there is a third party that is, for example, us, like BFAS. Then there are housing associations, there are entrepreneurs, and the local people that are there in the area. Then you go meet the community, and then we have a place game. We will also share, like in the comments, the link to the place game on how you can organize it. And it's basically a meeting where all the people come together. So all the stakeholders, like the residents and the housing associations, real estate owners, and also the developers, and they sit together, they decide, okay, what are the good things that we can do? What are the long-term things? What are the short-term things? And therefore we form a place management team. And then you have these quick wins that you set up in action. Then there are some long-term ideas. What is really important in this whole process is the coalition. The coalition is a financial partnership, and it doesn't necessarily has to be always just the government. You know, it's along with the government, it's usually also the developers that are there in the area, the real estate owners, the entrepreneurs associations, residents, and everyone. They kind of come together for these financial partnerships. And I'm going to introduce you to the two researchers that I was also talking about earlier. And so both of them are in Amsterdam, and Amsterdam is a changing city. The two areas, one is Salisbury that I'll be talking about, and one is Rijkersbos. So Salisbury is a new area. So they are all new builds, like it's developing now. And Rijkersbos is an area from 1980s. So I'm going to start with Rijkersbos. This is a neighborhood from the 80s, and this is a metro line which goes from the north to the south of Amsterdam. And this is a shopping center of Rijkersbos. So there are a lot of diverse people that are living here, and there have been a lot of things that it is developing neighborhood. So we have to kind of refurbish and come up with new ideas about the area. This is one of the models that we developed for Rijkersbos, and most of these are actually shops in the plinth level. This is how it looks, and I know you have an image of Amsterdam, and this is not exactly how Amsterdam looks in your eyes. So this is also a part of Amsterdam. So we started with the place game along with the residents, developers, and as I said, with the whole group. And there were around 40 people who came to this place game to talk about their area. And from place game, we came to the place management team. So then we had a place management team who was meeting once in a month or twice in a month to see how and what we can do for the area. Then we reached this quick win map, the ideas that came up from the place game. And one of the ideas was to make it colorful. And because the area is kind of diverse, and people were like, okay, we need some color in our neighborhood, so we have to call for that. And since we know the community is the expert, so now the issues were that we kind of narrowed down one street where we wanted to bring this street art. But the question was, like, all the stakeholders, the municipality, the housing associations were like, oh no, this is not the right street, this is too narrow, and maybe this is not the street where we should go forward with this. And now here comes virtual reality as a tool that we use to convince the stakeholders on the topic, no, this is not so narrow, and you can experience it by yourself. And this is where we try to make a model for in a 3D model for Rigerspos and for the street art. And then we experience with virtual reality, and we showed people on how they experience it. And therefore, this project went forward after this, and we were able to develop this street art as planned. These are some of the visuals on how it looks now. And the event happened, of course, because before Corona. And these are a few pictures from the street art and the event. So now I'm going to take you to VR, the technology, and what exactly is important in there. Like it is focused on creating destinations. It is a collaborative tool. You can, this is also community driven, and you can have a vision already of a place through virtual reality. And of course, it is transdisciplinary. And like this whole research that we are doing is with some other companies too. So it's between BFAS, TIFO, TU Delft is the knowledge partner, and then also Swain. Now, what is a vibrant city at eye level? So like if we talk about the public space, we are talking about the space between the buildings. And so here you can see, okay, this space, okay, maybe it's this whole space, but no, like the city at eye level, when you're talking about that, then it also includes the plinths. So that is also very important. Then we have been researching on, like if you see the Better City, the City at Eye Level books, like we will also share a link on that with you. So there's a whole research ongoing on the urban design of an area or on this or for the street, like variations in height can enhance the quality, interactions at the plinth level between inside and outside environment. The tree heights need to be optimum in a public space to match eye level. And then the width of the pedestrian path can accentuate the semi-public space. But these are all theoretical things. Now, how do you research on it practically? Of course, by piloting it, but also by developing models for it. So this is also a picture from Den Haag on what can be a vibrant city at eye level when you have some front gardens, you have children playing, children biking freely, and then a perfect example of showing how you can bring about that change. So from a car street to a car-free street with bicycles where people can just chit-chat, have open plinths. This is from Van Oostadstraat in Amsterdam. And then you realize like what is the power of visualization and how we can use virtual reality for it. And therefore, you have to understand that it is just more than a nice experience, and it's about understanding and observing about a particular space. You define a perspective and you ideate it, you develop the prototypes, and then you test it. So you're already testing a 3D space without actually making it. So it is important as a design tool for individual designers, as a coalition between stakeholders for public participation and communication and data analysis. I'll show you in the pictures further on how we did that. So we had multiple breakthroughs in which we were using virtual reality at different places to see how people are reacting to the projects. And this is how the research is also taking place. And the research is in Salisbury in Amsterdam. That is a neighborhood that needs to develop. So the buildings are still to come up. And we were researching on this particular street on how people experience the place. So it was focused on the main points of urban design, of building blocks, diversity, trees and greenery, squares, building heights, street design. And these were the models that were developed, and people could use the headsets, the VR headsets, and then they could be in the area already and see, okay, how do they experience it? Now, these are a few pictures of the model itself. And here you can see how they were experiencing it. And the data is now recorded on how do they experience the place. So for how much time do they see a particular place? For example, this plinth is being seen a lot of times. Or where do they want to be? Do they want to be in the park most of the time? Or which are the spots that they are seeing? So like in the development of the area, then you can concentrate on those areas as most visible parts. So we also collect the data in the sense of how do they feel in a particular area. And this is what VR is doing in the urban design process. So the conclusions that we came from this study were that design variant was experienced as more attractive, and that VR is a useful tool for design choices. The streets were wider than expected, and VR is seen as a useful tool for project team, residents, market parties. And I would like to just almost end this presentation by saying that it is a tool that we can use in different things, for place branding, for stakeholder communication, how we did for Raigus was, for design, architecture, urbanism, placemaking, how I showed you in the second example on how we were using it for the urban design. Then destination marketing, you can also use it. It's actually being used a lot for historical conservation and on showing how this thing was before. And then hospitality industry. And here I thank you and I leave you with my contact. So if you need more information, so please contact me on any of the virtual reality things. And also with this picture of Playground Central Station, which was a beach that came for a month in front of Amsterdam Central Station for local people. Thank you.
Thank you, Suganda. That was a great presentation. And I really love the idea of virtual reality to present before and after, because I think that would be the quickest way to convince our decision makers, our governments to, invest in our cities, invest in our public placemaking initiatives. And I feel that at least in India, I can say that now the government is actually moving towards the good practices. Like the Amsterdam is very known for the cycling initiative. So we also have Cycle for Change competition going on among our cities, among our urban local bodies. Then we have Streets for People initiative. So we would like to know about the projects that you did in the neighborhood, like the placemaking initiative, because I do believe when there are multi stakeholders involved, how does this collaborative work, especially with the government, with the decision makers, and a private players?
Yeah, I think, Sonali, the most important thing is that it's a bottom-up approach, but it's also a top-down approach. So it has to come together. I mean, just one thing cannot work on itself. So as I also showed, like in the initial slides of mine, that the participation process is very much in the blood of the Netherlands, I would say. So it's like it also comes as a law that you have to include the people right from the starting. And it's also not like you already made a plan for an area and then you just introduce it to the people. No, like from the starting, like even if you're thinking about changing an area, so you have to invite all the residents, all the entrepreneurs in the area, talk to them. What do they think? What are the things that they want in the particular place? So I think it is very important that you have to talk to the people about it. And the other thing that is also very important is that only government cannot do everything. That is also, yeah, that is also understood. But like, for example, in most of our projects, the financial parties are not just the government, it's also the real estate developers, for example. And there are also entrepreneurs in a particular area who want a better place to make it more economically viable, for example. So I think that's how the process works.
Thanks, Suganda. I hope that we can really replicate some of these initiatives in India also. And now with this, we conclude our session's the slide presentation, and I would like to invite Dr. Morrison for the Q&A round. So now we can have both of you for the Q&A round. Can we have Dr. Morrison back in the show?
Ta-da!
That's great. That's great.
That was
So
great, Suganda. So interesting. I love the work and the approach that you're taking is great.
Perfect. Yours too, Joe.
So it was great hearing you both, and I'm very excited for our future. I feel that, I'm hoping that we have such a great opportunity here. Now, I would like to talk about the future, like this question is for both Dr. Morrison and Suganda Gupta, but let's say particularly related to your technology. Like when you say digital placemaking, what are the challenges that you see in adopting it as part of urban design and management? Or do you think that there is still, it is still not being part of urban design and management? And what are the way forward for it? And to you, Suganda, I wanted to know that what's the future for virtual reality? How easy or how can we adapt it for urban design? Because I think it's a very good tool in our plans when we try to make our proposals. So where do you see it going? Over to you.
I would say Joe first.
Okay, I was going to offer that to you. Give me more time to think, but you got in there first, Suganda. Okay, so I would say that in recent years there's been a real explosion in my experience. I've been working in the field for 20 years, but in the last, say, 3 or 4, there's been a real explosion of interest in the benefits of digital placemaking, and it's from people who are more innovative thinkers. For instance, more progressive architects and urban designers can see opportunities, and I can say that directly because we've been part of master plan consortia. Universities have got large research programs looking exactly in this area, and often that is done with business because there's a close relationship with some of the funding. For instance, the University of Edinburgh and the University of the West of England. Also, I've been exploring possibilities with local, government agencies. But I'd say some of the challenges, although we're on a really positive trajectory, without doubt, and quite rightly, is that the opportunities are maybe not universally understood. And indeed, some people in local government have said that sometimes they feel that some of and local government's very, it's distributed. But overall, there's maybe a lack of ambition and a lack of understanding of the opportunities. And what that means is that, and what we need to happen is that there's kind of deeper policy. So there's deeper knowledge by clients, and that is pushed by policy, if you like, and such that the briefs that we get and the procurement process that we get supports the inclusion of digital placemaking and urban technologies and so forth as part of our future experiences of urban environments.
Okay, Sonali, I will answer your question now. So the thing is about the virtual reality is that for now we are using it as a tool to understand better our places, and of course, not just to convince our stakeholders, but also for ourselves to see what are the possibilities that can be there for the future. And if we talk specifically about VR's future, then like even in the research that is going on, it's also about it's evolving. Technology is just evolving, so it's about the new headsets where you can even see like where people can also hear like the sounds of the streets, for example, and then we can record the data on how do they react if they also hear the sounds on the street as we see in normal places. Like the data right now that we have is only when they can only see, for example. So this is just one example, but of course, like the data can improve, the results and the conclusions can also improve thereafter. So that would be one thing.
Thank you, Suganda, and thank you, Dr. Morrison, for answering my questions about the future. I think the future looks bright with these technologies. And now moving on to the audience Q&A, I'm just going through our comments, and I have one question for Suganda about VR. How do you see VR, AR being used not just as a tool to help or convince stakeholders, but also as a tool that could add an additional digital layer to our built environment? Example, Pokemon Go.
I would say like already it has a layer to how we can think also, because like for example, like we have been ideating on how do we do our place games, for example. So, you know, if we can really use AR while doing our place games, and if people can already see on their phones, okay, if this bench is going to be there, what kind of changes can it make? Or if this fountain is going to be here, how will it impact me? And what if I have a street art here? I mean, what is the change? So I think it can already provide a layer to the design elements that we have and the design thinking that we have. So I think it's already doing a lot of things on adding a digital layer to the existing process.
Yeah, I think gaming apps have a huge potential in using VR because that's a great, I mean, I think Pokemon Go is a great example, as pointed out by our user, that actually cleverly uses our built environment, that actually made people to step out of their houses and select Pokemon Go. So I think it's a great thing that the games were doing that. And I mean, that's great. Technology can actually take us out also. And now I have another question that I would want Dr. Morrison to respond to. What is the relevance between tourism and placemaking?
Well, I'll answer that in terms of the digital technology side, and I'd say already we know that it's seamlessly interlinked, and that's from the whole. All the stages of the visitor life cycle. So we can take that from when people research the destination that they want to go to. We know that already many people do that through the use of digital technologies. When they're then planning their trip and making bookings and so forth for hotels and flights and trains and all the transport and so forth, same again. The actual traveling, being there, being at the location, and then reminiscing afterwards. So we know that there are platforms and that there are tools that are already completely and utterly part of the visitor experience in terms of tourism. What I was showing and I don't know if the questioner was here for my session, what I was showing with the Place Experience platform was a way to both enhance the experience of the the traveler, of the visitor when in location, but also to mitigate against some of the negatives when you have too many people in a particular location. And that is, and I won't replay my presentation, but digital tools enable us to do that as well, to help move people around and move them around a place in a way that is a much better experience, that can be tailored and personalized, where they can also receive up-to-date information through, in this case, through an app about a location, and so can have a far more responsive relationship with that place. So I think inextricably linked, and even more so. And it's the personalization, I think, is key there.
I think you rightly said that technology is a great enabler, and I always say that it is all as an enabler and also a leveler in terms of social inequalities. It gives access to everybody. There is no difference, and obviously, like as a avid traveler, I would say that it would be good for me to know beforehand what my journey would look like, and also it gives me options to choose what I really want, because it happens that I choose a hotel and I don't know how it is. I don't know how it looks. I just go by the reviews. But what if I can see it and decide it for myself? So that would give me an edge over my choices. And with this, I would also take this opportunity to speak about SafetyPin, the app that I work for. And so we are also a technology platform, and we work with a set of different apps that collects data in our cities, and we focus on how we are making public spaces safer for women and everybody in general, and how are we including this vulnerable groups and other excluded groups in our public making. And we work with decision makers, different stakeholders, private players, neighborhoods, communities, and we try to bring them together and ask them to think for their own city and act and give data, give feedback on their own city and work towards it, because we believe that physical improvement is needed as opposed to just the surveillance or just keeping our cities safe in the names of, let's say, we don't need more policing, but we need more lively neighborhoods that one can feel safe to walk in. So with this, I think we are coming to an end to our session, because I think we are on time. And with this, I think I'll hand over to Dimple for this session.
Yeah. We have just one more question to go. So we have a question about how is the awareness amongst the various stakeholders about tech in placemaking and adaptability. Dr. Joe, would you like to take that?
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to it in my earlier answer, which is that it's, I would say it's getting a lot better, but it's still quite patchy. So there are some people with tremendous ambition, real innovators. The developers that we worked for in Cardiff are called Igloo, and they're a sustainable developer, and really innovative people. And so, they did that was a tremendous piece of work. And equally, you have that in local government, you have that in the universities and within communities and so on and so forth. But I'd say it's still quite patchy, but very, very much on the rise. In fact, and I'll be quick because I know we're out of time shortly. The London plan was released yesterday, and I'd encourage people to have a look there about the policy around mobile technologies, digital accessibility, and so forth. So it's really coming in at a policy level for a city, and that's massively good. And we're optimistic as a result.
Right, great, sounds good. Suganda, you would like to add anything there?
Yeah. Yes, Dimple, one thing that I would like to say is it's a very different feedback you get from people than you expect. like when you're using the technology with the user, with the end user. So it's you do not expect the answers coming like that. Like, for example, in one of those studies, people said, "Oh, the street actually looks really wide," though I did not really imagine it. So I think there is a perception that you might think it one way, but actually the user thinks the other way. So it's also something for them which is new, and slowly, of course, it's already becoming a thing. So people are getting used to it day by day.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's great. I think that was a wonderful session from three wonderful women who are doing a great role in their particular fields of interest and expertise. Dr. Jo, thank you so much. That was wonderful insight into all your work and what Calvium is doing for the city there. So that was a great perspective that you gave us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Suganda, that was wonderful. We at least had some insight into the virtual reality world, what placemaking is going to go forward with. So that's a great work that you're doing there. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and research work. Thank you so much. Yeah. And thank you, Sonali, for a wonderful moderated session. That was really nice. Thank you so much. And also for giving us insights into safety pin and, the women's safety angle is really of interest, I'm sure, to a lot of us, in the current scenario. So thank you so much. Thank you. And would like to, anything you'd like to add on here?
I would just like to thank you, Dimple, and also Sonali, also Jo, and also, of course, Jamiti for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, all of us.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to meet you all. Thank you very much. And to everybody who came today and participated.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.